I'm Dr. Lindsay Coble.
Dr. Noelle Crosby, and we are the Sound Sisters, and this is the Hearing Diaries. And today we are so excited to have Kathy Dowd of the Audiology Project, or the abbreviation would be TAP. Do you know what TAP is? If you don't, you're going to find out today. She is the founder of the Audiology Project, and it was a visionary initiative connecting hearing health to diabetes, and now even taking it further to connect it to chronic disease and public health. Kathy's work has reshaped how we think about hearing care, not as a siloed specialty, but as an essential part of overall wellness. She has spread this word and it's made such a difference. So she's bridged the world of audiology, medicine, and advocacy in a way that few have. So, Kathy, welcome. We're so glad that you're here.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I look
Thank you
forward
for
to talking to you both.
thank you so much for joining us, Kathy. This is the first time Kathy and I are officially meeting. So, Kathy, for those who aren't familiar with you, tell us a little bit just about yourself.
Well, I don't know how much you want to know. I am now 75 years old,
Oh, my word.
Don't
but
look
I
it.
I did
You
work
do not
in
look it.
I retired in 2014 from my practices. Um, but before that, my undergrad is in French education. I was a teacher for the junior
Ah,
and senior high schools,
Oh
which
I
my
never
God.
knew that.
yes, when I got a job as a supervisor for hearing impaired programs in Louisiana and Baton Rouge, you had to have a teaching certificate. And I said, "Oh, I have one."
Oh my gosh.
Although I also got licensed as an audiologist, so it's a different way of looking at things.
hmm Very different path. And so, did you
Yep.
own multiple offices? Did you have a private practice and you had multiple locations, or?
Well, I started out working in ENTs to get
Okay.
really fast and really
Uh-huh.
exact, and then I worked in school systems for about
Both
five
of us.
years
Uh-huh.
as an educational audiologist, and then I hated referring to dispensers for
Mhm.
the dispensing of the hearing aids. I did all
Mhm.
the evaluation, but then I'd get issues with the way they
Mhm.
got fit. So I had a Miracle Air franchise was my first business,
Mhm.
and I covered 13 counties around Charlotte and South Carolina and did that for 7 years. And then after I sold that, I went into private practice. And
Wow.
and from there I had one for 15 years, and then the next two were each 3 years.
Mhm.
So
Amazing.
Lots of history.
it was fun. Everything with it was fun.
Love that.
Yeah, you were probably like one of the early audiologists where there wasn't many audiologists dispensing, I'm thinking.
We couldn't dispense. In
Right.
1980, we sued the licensing board. I think it
Mhm.
was 80, the licensing board in North Carolina, and before it went to the judge, they capitulated and said, "Okay, if you take our test
Mhm.
and pass it,
Yeah.
then we'll go ahead and get you licensed."
That's
Um,
way before Lindsay's time.
Yeah. But thank
That's
you for being a trailblazer in that
yeah.
conversation. So neat.
well, there were about 15 of us who
Yeah.
Hmm
were just adamant about getting it done. So,
Yeah. And in North Carolina.
yes, in North
Okay.
Carolina.
hmm
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, so listen, tell us a story about what inspired you to start the Audiology Project. And I remember you saying there was like a specific patient that you'll tell us about, or a moment that made the mission personal for you. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, my history with medical necessity for hearing testing as an audiologist went all the way back to 1993 when I started working in nursing homes. And then in 94, I filed a complaint to our licensing board about a speech therapist who had done oral rehab. And then months later, I got the referral to test his hearing. He had a 70 dB hearing loss. I filed a complaint to the licensing board. They did nothing. And I got a 2-year Medicare audit where I had to go back on 40 different cases and say, what was the medical necessity? So it's like, okay. So from
Mhm.
then on, I was focused on medical necessity because you
Mhm.
can't bill. But again, if you do a case history, there is always medical necessity.
Mhm.
And then jump forward to 2011, my mother-in-law was mid 80s in an assisted living in Louisville, Kentucky. And she got a diagnosis at age 85 of diabetes. So I would drive out there every few weeks, and I went after this diagnosis, and my brother-in-law was there. And he was running around trying to tell the nurses how to check her blood sugar. He went to the cafeteria to talk about her food, what she could
Mhm.
eat, and other things they needed to know. And I said, well, Richard, we have to keep a closer check on her hearing, because that was one thing I did know.
Mhm.
He said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, diabetes causes hearing loss. He said, I've never heard that. Now, he was in charge of the Michigan program for
Mhm.
diabetes. And I said,
Oh, he
okay,
was.
yes.
Interesting.
And I said, okay, who gives you your information? And he
Mhm.
said, ADA and
Mhm.
CDC.
Mhm.
So I started emailing CDC. Can you give me information about diabetes and hearing loss? And they'd send me stuff about diabetes and stuff about hearing loss. And I say, no, 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 I want the connection. I
Mhm.
did this for about a month. And then finally I got an email that said, um, I've seen your emails and can we talk?
Mhm.
And that was Dr. Pamela Allweiss.
I know
So
you're
we got
talking
on
about
the
her.
phone and she said, we have never heard of this before. I said, okay, well, I'll send you the research.
Mhm.
I was a research intern at the University of Louisville and the school system, so I know how to go find research. And I gave her a huge bibliography. And this was like September of 2011 or October. And then about a month later, she sends me an email and says, look what I found.
Oh my God.
And CDC had sponsored research
God.
in 2009 that nobody read.
Oh my God. Mhm.
So, so so we kept communicating back and forth. In 2016, all right, 5 years later, 2016, she said, okay, we're going to go ahead and include audiology in the PPOD tool guide, which was pharmacy, podiatry, optometry, and dental.
Mhm.
And so I thought, okay, I can't do this on my own. So I reached out to Michael Duenas, who is the Chief Public Health Officer at AOA, the American Optometric, and somebody at Johnson and Johnson's Diabetes Institute, and they said you need to have a stakeholders meeting.
Mhm.
So Michael Duenas suggested Salis, which is where
Mhm.
I graduated from, and so I reached out to them, and then I reached out to ASHA, AAA, ADA, um, CDC. So we had a full day stakeholders meeting where we had presentations. Chris Spankovich,
Mhm.
Yep.
um, Richard Gans came and talked. Pam always didn't come, but she gave a presentation. We had AOA represented who spoke. Bob DeSogra talked about what he knew with the medications. It really was good. And then at the end, I said, what we need to do is to come to the table to create an entity.
Mhm.
And I had looked into a nonprofit, um, or maybe I had already formed it. I don't know, but I wanted them to be part of it.
Mhm.
And I got an accord, I thought, from everybody. And so that's how we got started.
Wow.
And then in 2017 or 18, we got a full periodical for, I can't remember the name of the journal, but
Mhm.
like it was covered everything. And all those people still, Chris Spankovich, Bob DeSogra, we had a pharmacist. There were a lot of people who gave articles. And so, but it wasn't until 2022 that we actually got guidelines. So
Wow.
10,
Wow.
Like
11
10 years.
years.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Wow.
Would you say, so that sounds like, quite the buildup, 10 years of buildup. What was the shift in momentum that has kind of catapulted TAP forward?
Well, I feel like we're still kind of grinding
Getting there?
out, because I'm part or have been part of a CDC Diabetes Management Coalition.
Okay.
I couldn't go to the initial meeting in July, a year and a half ago, but Pam went for
Hmm.
me, fortunately, because she knew all those people.
Hmm.
And so now they've been having regular meetings. What I found out in the last 4 to 6 months from an endocrinologist is they don't know anything about this.
Uh-huh. Hmm.
My own doctor, when I said I was still in practice, I said, "Why aren't you referring your patients with diabetes?" He said, "Oh, hearing aids are too expensive." I said, "They're not all going to need hearing aids.
Yeah.
It's a 30% incidence."
Hmm.
And then he said, "Well, if it was on the NCQA list, I'd have to do it." So I've
Hmm.
been chasing them since 2014.
Okay.
They still
Interesting.
won't open the door. I don't know what
And
it
a lot
is
of behind
about
the
our
scenes.
profession. It's like we're dirty or something. I don't understand because I value everything we do.
Because
Yep.
there's
It
such
is
a
so
negative
critical.
connotation of hearing aids and the
Yeah,
price of
that's
hearing aids, the hearing loss is getting so overlooked just from the
Well, the
negativity of
benefits,
hearing aids.
yes.
Yes. Yeah.
The lack of hearing and what it does to your mental illness and
Yes.
yeah.
mental
Yeah.
health or your physical health or your
Uh-huh.
socialization.
And I do
Um,
think there's more and more knowledge and understanding of that these days. I think that there's so much more literature about it and it's more valid, but you're right. It's still, oh, the hearing aid is the piece
All
that
people think
even with
about.
the over the counter and all the other solutions, it's
Mhm.
still, yeah, it's still
Mhm.
thought to be
Mhm.
something that they want to run away from.
Mhm.
well, and I
Mhm.
understand the importance for a business with hearing aids and all that, but really, um, I was out there in audiology way before that was part of it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so the value of, just the assessment and
Yeah.
Mhm.
making the recommendations and
Yeah.
getting people on the right path and then helping
Mhm.
them stay on the path
Mhm.
uh, is just so important.
Well, like
Mhm.
you were saying, your person had the 70 dB hearing loss and there was no intervention, and they're trying to
Mhm.
do rehab on somebody with that degree of hearing loss. So I
And
know
back
that
then, it
that's
wasn't even in their scope of practice.
right. Yeah.
So, I mean, I should have, because I got that Medicare audit, I just kept my head down. It's like,
Mhm.
I don't want to, I mean, 2 years of that, it was so stressful
Mhm.
And so did you get that audit because you were doing a lot of, because you were stirring up things and
because I
people,
filed the complaint.
oh,
Mhm. Mhm.
I am sure of it.
yeah,
It's
interesting.
And
crazy.
so I'm not going to step back now because
Yeah.
in 2017, um, my husband went into a facility and was refused a hearing assessment. Speech therapist came in for a cognitive. I said, "I want his hearing checked." "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have any equipment." I said, "That's fine. I want his hearing checked." "Oh, that'll take me too long to get somebody to come in and do a hearing assessment." I said, "That's fine. I want a hearing assessment." But then my husband said, "Oh, go ahead," which he could do. And we were off to the races. So I filed another
Yeah.
complaint. And now I'm still digging in on that with
Oh, really?
even CMS. And CMS didn't seem to be aware of, they've got a law from 1987 and nobody's doing it.
Oh my gosh.
There's
Isn't
state
that
laws and
crazy?
nobody's implementing.
And so
And
Uh-huh.
the,
people are doing cognitive tests on people in those facilities, and they don't even know if they have hearing or not, if they
oh,
can even
no, no, no.
hear the instructions.
I was an ombudsman for 4 years in nursing homes from 2019 to 2023. And I always found the speech therapist.
Mhm.
And the response was, "Oh, no, we don't do that.
Yeah,
If somebody
interesting.
needs it, they'll get it somewhere." Very
Mhm.
obtuse. Or I can tell when somebody, I mean, there was one gentleman I was trying to interview as an ombudsman, and he couldn't hear me. So I
Mhm.
asked an aide to go get the speech therapist. I said, "I'm trying to talk with Mr. Smith. He can't understand. do you know if he's had a cognitive? She said, yes, yes, he has had a cognitive. I said, well, I don't think he can hear. She said, well, he can hear better out of his left ear. Now, how the hell do you know that if you haven't
Done a
given?
test. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's BS. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
BS.
Mm.
Well, I
And
know
so
you're
don't get
passionate
me
about
stirred
that.
up on that.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
let's talk about how I know you've connected hearing loss with chronic disease, but how do you help other providers? I mean, I guess hearing stories like you're saying, and knowing that there's all these, but how do you help other providers grasp that link? What do you do to try to educate us and other different types of providers?
If you're an audiologist and if you bill Medicare, the requirement is that you have to have illness, injury, trauma, or complaint. If you don't have that, you cannot bill Medicare.
Right,
Mhm.
But there is always illness, injury, trauma, or complaint.
Mhm.
There
right.
are no routine hearing tests.
No,
Mhm.
And that was something that I kept seeing come up for the last 10 years. Where is that coming from? I mean,
Mhm.
are you all not billing Medicare? I mean, it's not hard if you do a case history.
right.
Mhm.
Trauma. I'd even reach back to, did you ever have some accident when you were a teenager or,
Mhm.
anybody shoot a firecracker right next to your ear when you were 10 or,
Mhm.
I mean, there's so many things. If you ask,
If you
if you
ask the right
don't,
questions.
well, I had a 2-page case history, so it
Mhm.
usually told me something and then I could
Right.
dig deeper. So,
What would you say is the best way for everyday audiologists to bring this knowledge into their clinical conversations? Where should they learn? Where should they read? How can they bring these up confidently with accurate information about diabetes and heart disease? And what's your recommendation from your knowledge?
well, what I gave to Pam always was a bibliography that I got on PubMed, and
Hmm.
you put in keywords. So you put in
Hmm.
hearing loss and you put in diabetes,
Hmm.
and boom, you get research that went all the way back to the 70s.
Oh my
Right.
gosh.
Um,
Hmm.
so I mean, you can do that with anything. If you're
Hmm.
unsure, is that linked to hearing loss?
Hmm.
Look it up on PubMed,
Hmm.
and you can find out.
Yeah.
Or ask the questions. We have a lot of information on diabetes, and as I said, we're going to expand to other chronic diseases in
Hmm.
2026, and
Hmm.
ototoxicity, and um, I have a
Right.
pharmacist that lives down the street. She has no knowledge of ototoxicity. I have a medical person that's in a hospitalist. She knows nothing of this.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm trying to educate my neighbors as well as as
Your
the
small
world.
circle. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Because I have a friend who's a researcher at l'Ansem de Paris. I've known her family since 1967. That is a diabetes research hospital. And I said, Lucy, can I send some information to your hospital about hearing loss? So she checked with her clinical director, who said there is no connection between hearing loss, and so we're not interested.
Mm.
And that's what you get in nursing homes. We don't have anybody with a hearing loss. Duh, the incidence is 80%. That's
Hmm.
amazing. That is amazing.
Hmm.
So,
Well, I know just from, working with you some, and also I've done a couple recently, well, quite a few years ago, and then more recently did some presentations on diabetes and hearing loss.
Hmm.
So when I first started talking to you and got interested in it, that was probably like 2018 or 2019.
yeah.
And then, COVID happened, and then, a lot of us maybe got derailed doing something because
Hmm.
everything was shifting. But then I picked it back up, and every time I do the research or start looking at the slides and the research to do a presentation on it, it just amazes me that it's not more in the forefront for all audiologists because
Hmm.
there's so many things about chronic disease in general and diabetes more specifically and hearing loss that we really do need to be aware of. So what are some of the small practical ways that practices can support your mission and get the word out more?
Well, we're going to reorganize the state cohorts, which we developed them, and then I
Yeah,
take
because
the
that was
blame
part
for
of it way, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I didn't keep everybody. So we're going to have quarterly meetings. We already have leaders for about 30 states, but not everybody wants, and I understand when you have a family and you have a practice and you're multitasking, you may not have. But it is marketing for your practice.
Mm-hmm.
To go out, I started in 2011, 2012, going to diabetes educators meetings locally in Charlotte, North Carolina. The
Mm,
pharmaceutical companies would have a dinner for everybody. And
Mm-hmm.
then I was one of the speakers, and I could
Mm-hmm.
hand out my card.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about these things. And I did, and then also I joined the state agency for diabetes. In 2011, I went to the head person. She was the same person that my brother-in-law was in Michigan, but I went to her about this thing with diabetes. She said, "Oh, we're writing guidelines. Maybe tell me about this." And I said, "Well, it causes um, issues with being able to follow directions. So if you're giving them directions on what to do, they're not going to hear it." She
Mm-hmm.
said, "I'm going to put this in our guidelines." She put in hearing screening back in 2011
Oh my
in
gosh.
North Carolina just
Mm-hmm.
from that one visit. And
Mm-hmm.
then I stayed going to the meetings, which were 2.5 hours away. But every time she introduced a new thing, I'd make sure it was somehow compatible with hearing and
Mm-hmm.
audiology. And she was very accommodating. And
mm,
then there's a dementia capable coalition in North Carolina. There's a fall prevention. There are no audiologists on these. We need to get
Mm-hmm.
active in our
yeah.
states.
Mm-hmm.
Every
Um,
time I hear Kathy talk or I think about it, I'm like, I'm gonna, start reaching out to all the doctors in my area and really like help to
Yeah.
educate them so they
Mm-hmm.
they understand more about this.
Mm-hmm.
so it
Well, what
is,
I'm
I mean, it'll bring people into your office,
mm-hmm.
definitely.
Yeah.
What
But
I'm
also
thinking,
just the awareness.
even from a state association standpoint, if you could have a group of people as part of your state association who learn from the Audiology Project, and then one of them represents the state at the fall
Yeah.
prevention
Yes,
discussion, one represents the dementia and cognition discussion. I see that being like a wing as we're a
Yes.
new state association in Indiana, like a
smart.
education. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
That's
I love
smart.
I
that.
like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. So you've met with policymakers, clinicians, educators. What's one of your favorite success stories that you felt like really moved the needle forward? Sounds like that gal you were just talking about. She's kind of a success story that she
Right.
implemented your recommendation right away. That's a
Well, that
success
was
story.
2011. And, Pam Allwise has stuck with us. She's on our board now.
Mhm.
I saw she was retiring in 2019. So I called and said, "Would you be on our board?" I mean,
Mhm.
that is so valuable. But yeah, there's so many things. And I've been talking with CMS since 2020
Mhm.
about there are laws in every single state for hearing assessments. The state has a law, and then the federal has a law.
Mhm.
So that has been very educational for CMS because they didn't realize I mean, they're requiring that we have medical necessity, and they didn't even know what is medical necessity for
Mhm.
hearing.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
there's so much to do.
So much to
Yeah.
do.
But we just have to keep pushing
Yeah.
forward
Yeah.
little by little.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. So where do you see the most progress happening now? Is it with the understanding or the like getting it more in the forefront of doctors or just the whole discussion about chronic disease, or where do you see that really making the most difference?
For diabetes, I think the best thing for anybody to do is to link up with diabetes educators
Mm,
Okay.
in your state or in your local area and come to one of their classes and
mhm,
present, or just give them a referral form and, where the patient can fill out what are all their medical issues, and then they can call your office and set up an appointment.
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
Yeah.
so the diabetes educators, I think they've been open ever since 2012 when I went to
mm,
their first conference or
mm.
my first conference. Um, you know,
Kathy, does the TAP website have content or have information materials that somebody could take to a meeting like this?
we do have educational materials, but what we're going to do for the TAP cohorts is provide PowerPoints.
Okay. Oh, nice.
So
Okay. Good.
PowerPoints that I've given or somebody else has given that maybe were an hour, hour and a half.
Uh-huh.
So if you've got 20 minutes, you can kind of
Yeah.
pick
Put it up.
out
Yeah.
what,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, it's in general, it talks about audiology in general and all the things we have to look at. But then, based on who your audience is, you'll be able to pull that out. And then
Hmm.
we are going to create some more flyers, totally about ototoxicity and vestibular toxicity.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so that same family member that was diagnosed with diabetes a few years later got C. diff, which is a gut infection.
Hmm.
So she already had a moderate hearing loss. She already was on Lasix for congestive heart failure. And then the doctor put her on gentamicin.
Hmm.
Wow.
And I went with her to the doctor's office and I said, you know that gentamicin I think is ruining her hearing. He said, oh no, no, no. When she goes off of it, her hearing's gonna come back.
Oh,
I
geez.
said, I said, I don't think so. But I also realized, you know, I could not convince him within 5 minutes, which was
Uh-huh.
the extent of the so and
Lots of work.
unfortunately
Lots of
she
work.
she
Yeah.
lost all her discrimination. Her thresholds
Oh.
only went down about 10 decibels, but
Right.
her discrimination went to
Mm.
zero. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm.
there's just so many things.
Well, I know that even, we're talking about just the hearing loss piece of it, but I also know in my research and presentations I've done, it's the whole balance vestibular portion of it too, and the falls and the risk for falls and so I know there's, I was reading about lots of little screenings that we could even do as a private practice just check their balance as well. So there's
Mhm.
so much that we can do as audiologists. So I guess what I want to say in wrapping this part up
Mhm.
is that our Be Curious segment of this is to be curious about what you can do as an audiologist to be a part of this movement. And like
Mhm.
Kathy said, they're starting more state cohorts. So you could be
Mhm.
either volunteer to be a part of that cohort and just really learn and educate others about all these different things related to diabetes and just the other chronic diseases as well. So that is just so much that that we can do. And you started the charge, and we really appreciate that. Let's move into our rapid fire Be Curious segment. So, what is one word that describes you and why?
Well, I guess when there's a problem in front of me, I commit to it. And maybe I should be committed.
Committed.
But
I like that. I
You
was going to say
did.
like
I like that.
tenacious or, you're not going to back down. You're just going to keep it
mm-mm.
going.
I like this one, Kathy. Where do you see hearing healthcare 10 years from now?
With
You've
the
seen how
new
slowly it goes, but
Well, with the steps, with CMS steps now to have federal surveyors go around to nursing homes and penalize the nursing homes for not doing hearing assessments, in 10 years, we had better grow our ranks by
Mm,
3 or 4 times.
Mhm.
I mean, we need 100,000, really, we really need 100,000 audiologists to
wow.
address the
The
need
need.
for skilled nursing, and then the Olmstead Act covers assisted living, a
Mhm.
mandate. So
Mhm.
there's just so
Mm.
much.
So let's ask another question. What is a sound that makes you happy?
Um, Actually, I have a sound machine to go sleep well. Um, I like music. I
Okay.
like silence.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I guess
If
silence is a sound in a sense, right?
yeah, sure is.
The
If
sound of
money wasn't a concern, what would you do?
I think I'd be doing the exact same thing I'm doing.
Mhm.
I do enjoy to travel, but at this point I'm not traveling, so uh, I'm just fine with what I'm doing.
I love
We
to see that.
appreciate
You're
what you're
just
doing.
content. And
Uh-huh.
what's one thing that our profession could do better for patients? Did you ask that already,
Mm-mm.
Lindsay?
Nope,
Okay.
not yet.
I think we have to show empathy and care.
Mm,
I've seen on social media where audiologists are getting upset because they have patients come in who are angry.
mm,
To me, that's always an opportunity.
Right.
Sit the person down, let them rant and rave and say the words, "You are right." Whether
mhm.
they are or not, in
That's
their
a hard thing
mind,
to
Yeah.
say, but I
it
love
is.
that.
You are right. And then you see them kind of melt and just be so glad that you heard what they said. And then you can tell them, okay, this is how we're going to fix it for you.
Mhm,
But
mhm,
don't get upset when the patient's upset. It's not you. They're trying to deal with something. So,
mhm. Just listen. Just listen to the
Yeah.
patients and acknowledge. I love that. Okay, our last question. Which B fits you best? Kind, brave, curious, bold, or happy? Which of those words describe you best?
well, in my mind, I would say kind.
Well, just from what
Well,
you said, that makes sense.
yeah.
That's
A
what I try to
kind
be.
bee. Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you, Kathy. We really appreciate it. And your passion and persistence have helped bring hearing health into the larger healthcare conversation where it's always belonged. We are more than just the widget. So thank you for reminding us that advocacy doesn't have to be loud, it just has to be consistent. Yes,
And
you have
thank
done
you for
that.
your work also. This
No,
is
thank
great.
you.
Thank
And
you
we
for
thank
joining us,
you for
Kathy.
joining.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we'll see you all next time on the Sound Sisters. Thanks.
Bye bye.